Good morning, folks. This is David Hurley of EasyChessTips.com, the pub chess bluffer, reporting on events in my corner of the British Chess Championships as they transpired yesterday, Wednesday, the 1st of August, here in Hull. In the morning, I went along to an open-air chess festival outside the City Hall, and I saw a guy there who was sat at the table waiting for a player to join him. So I sat down there and we played a couple of games. It turned out he's a blitz expert, and I started as black. I played Charlie Story's sniper opening. I went a knight down and I lost that game. Then we played one more game, and I was white and played my usual d4 opening, and I launched a sacrificial attack down the h file. I had 3 pawns, trebled pawns on my g file. I was trying to trade off a rook for his bishop, which was on g7, and break open his kingside castle defenses. And in fact, I succeeded in doing that, and I was able to check him multiple times and bring my pieces into the attack. However, I failed to see that I had him in a forced checkmate in 2 situation, and I sacrificed my knight to try to break open the position further. It wasn't necessary. In the post-game analysis, he showed me my mistake, and once he managed to escape from a checking position, he then had lots of pieces on the board to counterattack my exposed king. Highly entertaining game, probably the most fun game I've played here this week. But we didn't take notes. We were just doing the post-game analysis from memory. So I can't recreate the game here. Then in the afternoon, I played in the third game of 5 in the under 1750 tournament. I was playing against a guy a few years older than me. He was white, and so it's my first adult opponent of this mini tournament that I'm in, a minor tournament in the British Chess Championships. He started with e5. Now, this won't be a very long video because I respond to e5 with the French defense, but something happened. I made an early set of bad moves. So let's take you through and then I'll talk about it. So d4, d5, classic French defense opening. One variation is knight to c3. If you move your knight here, the bishop sometimes comes down here and then pins the knight to the king. So one alternative, one variation, which was played yesterday, is called the Tarrasch variation, where the knight goes instead to d2 in front of the queen. Now, if black brings his bishop down here to attempt to pin the knight to the king, white has a simple response. He can simply move his pawn up here to c3. This knight is also adding an extra, or is also defending this pawn here if the pawn stays on e4. The downside, the temporary downside of this position is that the black squared bishop is hemmed in. But what usually happens is white moves this knight to a new square, a target square, such as this one over here, or sometimes even b3, though b3 is not ideal, or if but those are the 2 main squares. So it's the point here when he played knight to d2 is that I realized this is the Tarrasch defense of the Tarrasch variation of the French defense, because my chess coach last year at Llandudno, the chess championships in Wales last year, Paul Robson, gave me some coaching in this variation. However, I didn't do my follow-up homework as I should have done when I went back to Japan, and in the whole year playing games online, and also my the few games that I play each month over the board, I haven't encountered the Tarrasch variation of the French defense, so I kind of put it on the back burner, didn't do my preparation, and now I'm suddenly confronted with the Tarrasch defense. I recognize that it is the Tarrasch defense, but I can't remember what I really should be doing beyond a few moves. However, I played through. I brought my knight out. This is pretty standard. It invites this pawn to advance, which is what happened in the game. The knight then goes to d7. In this variation of the Tarrasch variation in the French defense, we have a fifth move, bishop to d3. It's one of the thematic variations. I responded with c5, which is perfectly standard. So you see we're building up pressure on this pawn here and this pawn here. The French defense, the theme of the French defense is to have a fairly close position. It gets a bit cramped over on the queen side for black, but black has counter-attacking opportunities, or should have, if he plays properly, counter-attacking opportunities against white's pawn chain. White responds with c3. I brought my second knight into the attack. So this is a classic French defense structure. Nothing has gone wrong yet. He brings his knight out to e2. Now, here I played f3, seeing that things are a little bit cramped down here with the knights covering the exit squares, if you like, for the queen and the bishop. I thought I'd play an early f3 to attack this pawn structure. And my opponent stopped to think about this for quite some time, but he found the correct move, which is to advance his knight up here to f4. By doing that, he's testing out the weaknesses of this structure. By moving my f-pawn early in the game in this particular structure, I've weakened this my king's pawn, and he sees that he's attacking the king's pawn. Now, as I look at the board here, the obvious thing to do is to move your queen to e7. And if you do that, then things proceed fairly calmly. You see he gets in that second knight move there, freeing up the bishop. But I didn't do that. So let's put that back there. Let's go back to here. So there's my early f6 move. If I said f3, I meant f6. And then the knight comes in. The obvious move is to defend this pawn, offer some defense to these pawns with the queen here, and all will be fairly well. But I didn't do that. I made a very bad move. I'm looking at my bishop as being the defender of this pawn, so I decide to move my knight away, which takes me away from the themes of the French defense, and this move is very bad. Now what happens is, and in fact what did happen after a long look at the board, my opponent moved his queen up here, hitting the king, and again, I made another blunder here. The obvious, the square you should be moving your king to is, if you've made this kind of cock up in your position, now you're faced with the king being able to move here or here. And I moved my king here, thinking that I would be propping up my defenses, but it's a very bad move. You'll see what happens. Now, one option is for him to attack with the pawn. He doesn't do that. He comes in with the knight. I could see that this was going to happen. I realized that my rook was toast. He checks again, and that then forces me either to take with the pawn, which I should have done, accepting an exchange of a rook for a knight, and it places his queen down in the corner, which he said afterwards can cause you problems, can cause white problems, because white's queen is, although white's gone ahead on material, white's queen will have to find a better square at some stage. But I don't know what I was on yesterday afternoon, but I then moved my king here. I spent 2 moves moving my king to here. I decided to let him have the rook, placing his knight in the top corner. It was a terrible decision. And as you can see, white is winning. So that, from the point of view of my game, that's all there is of interest to report. The game continued. It was actually one of the longer games, to the 45th move before I decided that I really ought to resign. I want to show you, to get some value from this video, what I should have done after white moves his second knight here to e2. So I've checked with John Watson in his book Play the French, and it will also lead into the coaching, the advice that Paul Robson gave me last year, which I was not able to execute on due to my poor play in the opening. So instead of playing this line, let's switch over to this line, where my c pawn takes the d pawn. There's this exchange here, so the pawn chain is now reduced, and at this stage f6 can now come in, and usually this series of moves follows. And after that, the knight comes up here, the bishop comes here. Now both sides are ready to castle, and castling is one variation here. Queen to c2 is another variation, setting up a cannon, attacking this pawn down here, which is protected by the knight and the king. And that can certainly come in later. But if I castle here, some of the training Paul gave me last summer was about themes in which, once the knight has moved away, the rook will quite often sacrifice itself for this knight, forcing this pawn to retake and opening a path to the king. We did quite a lot of study of those kind of lines last year. However, I didn't give myself any opportunity to try those lines out yesterday. That was actually a missed opportunity. If I had done my prep and looked at the Tarrasch again, I may not have fallen into this foolishness that delivered up another hard lesson in my chess training, and has finally got me to look again at the Tarrasch defense of the Tarrasch variation of the French defense, shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted and chewed up my rook. Anyway, after this, I was feeling pretty chipper even after the loss. I actually had a very entertaining game, spending all those moves defending my position and seeing if I could get something from the game. So I had an enjoyable time in spite of the foolishness of my play. In the evening, Paul Robson and I joined the Hull Chess Club again for another evening out in town. This time we went to Furley's and Co. They have made a new beer which they have named Grandmaster Ale. It is said to be in recognition of last year's British chess champion Gavin Jones' achievements. And so Gavin Jones, he joined us last night, he and his wife, a women's international master, in recognition of their recognition of him, or rumoured recognition. And he joined us for a pint, and he and his wife are very, very, very nice couple, very sociable, fine couple. So it was very nice of them to join us. And my man, Paul Robson, proved his efficiency in social matters once again. There were 100 free pints of this Grandmaster Ale for the Hull Chess Club to enjoy. And one of the club secretaries was giving away the free tickets, and I secured 2 over the course of the day, so I got 1 extra pint free. I got 2 free pints, but my man Paul Robson showed his superior ability in these things as well as in chess. He managed to secure something like 12 tickets. I was joking earlier in the evening that he'd probably get hold of 5, because he was talking about having his fair share, and he's a big man, so his fair share is quite a lot bigger than the average portion, you might say. So he secured 12 free tickets over the course of the evening, and liberally shared them out among the circle. And so we had a pretty good night of it last night. I'm not sure where that leaves me today. I can tell you one thing, though, where it does leave me in the chess tournament, now that I'm one of 3 people who have not yet won any games. I'm playing one of the 3 times zeros, and it is an 11-year-old junior player, a girl who has not yet won a single game. So she'll probably feel she's in with a chance, playing against a pub chess bluffer. So I have to come up with something crafty to avoid that. I'll be playing white. I'll be opening with my usual d4, c4, knight to f3 combination, which is a very good combination in the right hands. I had a good time with it yesterday at the open air festival in the morning. I could have achieved a nice win if only I had seen how to polish off my opponent, a blitz expert. But there you are. Anyway, it's all very enjoyable. I'm having a blast still. I'm having a bit of a quiet morning today after the events last night. Tonight there is another Hull Chess Club pub crawl going around some of the old pubs that we weren't able to fit in on Tuesday night, was it? So that's and I'll be doing that with my man Paul Robson, and we get another free buffet. So I will be observing his skills in securing pole position and dominating the center of that particular board later today. That's all from me, David Hurley of EnglishChessTips.com, your pub chess bluffer. Until tomorrow.